My name's Noah, I'm 34, and I've always been the dependable one in my family. Not the star, not the troublemaker, not the one who gets all the praise. Just the guy who shows up on time, pays his dues, and never forgets a birthday. I work in accounting, live by myself, and keep things low-key. My family. They're boisterous, tight in that surface-level way, and experts at acting like everything's perfect while ignoring the real issues. I've always been on the edges, part of the group, but never truly included. The kind of person you invite to a reunion but don't bother to include in the group shot. Growing up, my brother Liam was the golden child. Charming, impulsive, always stumbling into chaos but somehow coming out unscathed. He had this slick charisma that my parents adored, like he could do no wrong. Even when he flunked out of college, lost a couple of jobs, and moved back home at 28, they still acted like he was destined for greatness. Me, I worked my way through school, held a steady job for over 10 years, and chipped in for their mortgage when Dad's work slowed down. But none of that ever seemed to count, at least not enough to earn me a real place in their spotlight. I tried not to let it bother me, or so I convinced myself. I kept my head down, sent the money, answered the calls, showed up for gatherings, and grinned through the little digs disguised as humor. Noah, you're too serious. Chill out, it's just a barbecue. We figured you'd be swamped. You're always at the office. I brushed it off. Deep down, I hoped that if I kept showing up, one day I'd be truly seen as part of the family, not just the one bankrolling it from the sidelines. That hope crumbled last autumn. It started with a dinner. Liam had just gotten engaged to a woman named Claire, who my mom already called a perfect gem, and my parents decided to host a lavish engagement party at a fancy downtown rooftop venue. Not their usual budget, which should have been a red flag. A few weeks before, my mom called. "Noah, honey," she said in that sweet tone she uses when she's after something, "we'd love for you to come to Liam and Claire's engagement dinner. It's going to be so special." Of course, I said without missing a beat. "Just let me know the details." Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "Oh, and if it's not too much, could you help with the reservation, just to secure it? We'll cover you later, of course." I should have known "we'll cover you" meant I'd never see a dime, but as always, I said yes. I called the venue, reserved a private area for 20, and put my card down for the deposit. It didn't faze me, not really. It was Liam's moment. And maybe, just maybe, this time I'd feel like I belonged. The night of the event, I arrived right on time, 7 p.m. sharp. I wore a sharp gray suit, crisp shirt, new cufflinks I'd been saving. I brought a fine bottle of wine for the couple and a personalized card with their initials. When I reached the rooftop, the hostess gave me a quick nod and pointed to the private section. I took a deep breath and stepped in. The setup was stunning, twinkling lights overhead, elegant floral arrangements, a soft jazz trio in the background. And there they were. My parents, Liam, Claire, her family, a few friends. Everyone was already sipping drinks, laughing, toasting. I smiled and approached, expecting at least a glance of acknowledgement. Instead, Liam turned to me with that familiar cocky grin. "Oh, hey," he said, barely noticing the wine in my hand. "Good you made it." Then he gestured to a folding chair tucked to the side, right by a garbage can. "Sorry, this table's for family only," he said with fake pity. "But there's a spot for you over there." I blinked, thinking it was a joke. I looked at Mom, who gave me that pinched smile she uses to avoid conflict. Dad let out an awkward laugh and raised his glass. Claire didn't even look up. Then a few people chuckled. I stood there, frozen, wanting to speak, but my throat tightening. It felt like I was 12 again, left out of a family photo because I didn't match the vibe. So I walked to the chair, set the wine bottle on the floor, and sat down alone. I didn't even take off my jacket. A waiter approached and asked if I was with the group. I nodded quietly. He didn't press further, just handed me a glass of water and moved on. I sat there for nearly 2 hours as they laughed, gave toasts, opened gifts. I watched Liam deliver a long speech about how blessed he was to be surrounded by his nearest and dearest. I watched Mom tear up when Claire called her the best future mother-in-law ever. Not one person glanced my way for the last half hour. Then the bill arrived. I saw the waiter head toward their table with a small leather folder. He paused, looked around, then checked the card on file. My card. He started walking toward me. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly. "The total for the event is $31.56. Should I charge the same card for the balance?" Everyone turned to look. Liam raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah," he said breezily. "Noah's handling it." The waiter looked at me, and I smiled, a steady, deliberate smile. My voice was calm. "Not my table," I said, loud enough for all to hear. "I was told this was for family only." The silence was deafening, like the air itself had cracked. Liam's mouth twitched. Mom frowned, puzzled. Dad sat up straighter. Claire's father raised an eyebrow. The waiter hesitated. "Sir, you booked the reservation?" "I did," I nodded, "and I paid the deposit, but I'm not with them, I'm over here." I pointed to the folding chair by the trash, where I was told to sit. The room went still. The waiter stood there, bill in hand, like he was holding a live wire. Mom's voice came low and unsteady. "Noah, what are you doing?" I shrugged. "Following the seating arrangement, Mom. Liam said this was for family only. Guess that means I'm not included." Liam's face hardened. "Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "It was a joke, you're always so sensitive." The jazz trio faltered into a low hum. All eyes were on me, and for once I didn't back down. "Yeah," I said slowly. "The problem is, you think it's all a joke as long as someone else is the punchline." Claire looked confused, like she was just now realizing something deeper was unfolding. Her father, a stern man in a suit who'd been mostly silent, gave Liam a sharp look. "You invited this man to your engagement party and sat him by the trash?" he asked, disbelief clear. Liam scoffed and looked to Mom for support. She forced a smile. "Let's not make a big deal out of this. Noah's just being emotional. He's always been sensitive." I almost laughed. That was her default line, always had been. "He's just sensitive. He's just overworked. He's just exaggerating. Anything to avoid admitting something hurtful had happened, and they'd allowed it." The waiter cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, but we need to settle the bill to close the tab for the private area. If the card on file isn't being used, I'll need another." Silence. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and nodded toward the trash can. "That's where I belong, right?" I said, and walked toward the elevator. The room froze. The waiter stood awkwardly, bill in hand. Liam looked like he'd been hit with a brick. Mom's eyes darted between me and the folder, trying to process how this had spiraled. "Wait, Noah," she said, her voice shaking. I didn't stop. "What are you doing?" Liam called out, his smirk gone. I turned back. "You said it yourself, Liam. Family only, so handle it." I didn't wait for a reply. I took the stairs, each step fueled by adrenaline and disbelief that I'd finally stood my ground. Outside, the cool night air hit me hard, sharp, and grounding. I loosened my tie and kept walking. I didn't know where to, but I wasn't turning back. I thought that might be the end of it. A dramatic exit, maybe a few half-hearted apologies later, perhaps another attempt to gloss it over. But I had no idea how far the fallout from that moment would reach. Later that night, still in my suit, still clutching that unopened bottle of wine like a forgotten promise, my phone lit up. First, a text from Liam. "Dude, really? You couldn't just pay and talk to me later?" Then another. "You embarrassed us in front of Claire's whole family. Was that your plan, to screw me over?" Then a call, unknown number. It was Claire. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said warily. "Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the flowers, all of it?" I paused. "Yeah." Silence. "Then they told my dad you offered, that it was your idea." I froze. "I never offered," I said slowly. "They asked," I said yes. "I didn't expect repayment, but I didn't do it for clout." Claire sighed. "Well, my dad's livid. He thought you volunteered as a nice gesture, but now he's saying he wouldn't have picked that place if he'd known it was paid for by someone they basically pushed aside." I didn't respond. "He said it made him look like an idiot," she added. "I'm not trying to stir things up, I just thought you should know." I thanked her and we hung up, but the ripples kept spreading. Over the next few days, things snowballed in ways I didn't expect. It started with the family group chat, usually buzzing with birthday plans, blurry party pics, or Happy Monday texts from my aunt. It had been silent since the dinner, but suddenly it exploded. "Mom, Noah, we need to talk. Call me when you're free." "Liam, you seriously messed things up with Claire's family. You owe us." "Dad, this is getting out of control. Just say sorry and let's move on." I didn't reply. It wasn't just the chair or the bill. It was years of being treated like the backup plan, the ATM, the fix-it guy. And now that I'd finally said no, they didn't know how to handle it. What made it worse, or better, depending on your perspective, was that Claire's father wasn't one to let embarrassment slide. From what I heard through a mutual friend, Jake, who'd always been kinder to me than most, Mr. Thompson had a breakdown the day after the dinner. He'd funded Claire's private education, helped launch her PR business, and had gone all out for a flawless engagement season. Only to learn the groom's family lied about who paid for the venue, humiliated their own kin, and left him with half the bar tab after I refused to cover the rest. Jake said Claire's dad told her at brunch, "If they treat their own like that, what happens when you're part of their family?" The fallout hit Liam hard. Wedding plans stalled. Claire moved back to her apartment for a breather. and the Pinterest boards disappeared. Mom, in full crisis mode, sent me a long email, not a text or a call, an email. Subject: "Please, let's talk." It was 5 paragraphs of polished guilt-tripping, saying she never meant to hurt me, never knew I felt left out, and how much it would mean if I'd just meet with Liam to patch things up. "No, sorry, just we didn't realize. You misunderstood. Let's not let one silly night ruin our connection." I stared at that last line. What connection? The one where I drove 4 hours on Christmas to drop off gifts because Mom said Liam was too stressed to shop? Or when I skipped my Italy trip because Dad needed surgery and they couldn't afford a nurse? Or when I co-signed their car loan without a second thought? The same car Liam borrowed and never gave back. I left the email unanswered. 2 days later, my Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, called. That was unexpected. She's not exactly warm, but she's sharp. A tough businesswoman who runs her own event planning company and always seems to be silently judging everyone. I hadn't talked to her in over a year. "Noah," she said, "I heard about the dinner." "Of course," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm not here to lecture you," she said quickly. "I just want to say well done. It's about time someone rattled their cage." That threw me, she sighed. "Look, I know how your parents are, always pretending everything's fine, ignoring the mess. They've leaned on you too long, and Liam. He's been getting away with treating you like a prop forever." "Thanks," I said quietly, "but why call now?" "Because the Thompsons are involved," she said dryly. "And your mom's freaking out. She called me yesterday asking if I'd talk sense into you." "What'd you say?" "I told her you don't need sense. You need room to breathe, and maybe they need to learn how to stand without you holding them up." For the first time, I felt like someone in my family actually saw me. Not as a resource or a doormat, just me. That night, I got another text from Liam. "Bro, Claire's dad just pulled the deposit on the wedding venue, said we don't share the same values. Fix this, not can you help? Not I'm sorry, just fix this." That's when it hit me. He still saw me as his cleanup crew, his safety net, his ATM with a pulse, so I decided to fix something, but not for him. That night, I logged into the joint account I'd set up for Liam when he was jobless. The one he never bothered to close, still linked to his streaming services and gym membership. I transferred the remaining funds, a couple thousand, into a new personal savings account I'd opened. Money I'd left there out of some misplaced sense of loyalty. Then I called the bank and shut down the joint account for good. The next morning, Liam called 5 times in a row. When I finally answered, he was panicked. "What did you do? My card's not working. It says the account's gone." "I know," I said calmly. "I closed it." "You what?" he shouted. "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I did. You said I wasn't family, remember, so you don't get to use my money." He stumbled, then switched gears. "Come on, man, don't do this. You're just jealous. You've always hated that I got the spotlight. Now you're throwing a fit because Claire's dad backed me." I laughed. "You think he's backing you?" Silence. "Then don't worry, Liam. You'll figure it out. You always do. Maybe ask Mom to open another credit line for you, or maybe Claire's dad can teach you how to stand on your own." I hung up. I don't know what Liam did next. But a few hours later, my phone pinged, an email from Claire. Subject: "We need to talk." I stared at it for a while before opening it. It was long, polite, but raw. She said she hadn't realized how I'd been treated until the whole thing unraveled. "I was so focused on making the night perfect, I missed the bigger picture," she wrote. But her father was furious, not just about the money, but the principle. He said if they can publicly shame someone who funded the entire evening, I need to rethink who I'm tying myself to. Claire didn't hold back. She said Liam tried to brush it off as a misunderstanding, but when her dad got the restaurant's invoice breakdown, the lies fell apart. Liam had told her I wanted to pay, that I preferred sitting alone because I'm quiet, that I left early for work. But when I called the restaurant myself, she wrote, it all collapsed. Then came the bombshell. "I called off the engagement last night." I blinked. She said it wasn't just the dinner. It was the pattern it exposed, Liam's entitlement, his dismissiveness, the way he spoke about me behind my back. "He kept saying you were overreacting," she wrote. "But you were the only one who acted with any integrity." She closed with, "I'm not writing to drag you into this. I just wanted you to know I see it now, and I'm sorry I didn't see it earlier." I reread it, not because I doubted it, but because I wasn't used to being believed. The next few weeks were quiet. The group chat went silent. Liam tried calling twice more, but when I didn't pick up, he stopped. I heard through Jake that he'd moved back in with our parents. Claire returned the ring. Her dad sent out cancellation notices to the venue and vendors. Some of Liam's friends dropped him, apparently tired of his freeloading off Claire's network. I thought that might be the end of it, a quiet fade-out. Then one Sunday morning, there was a knock at my door. It was Mom standing on my porch in a long sweater holding a container of baked ziti like a truce flag. Her eyes were red, her makeup sparse. I didn't speak, just opened the door slightly and waited. "I brought you dinner," she said. I didn't take it. "I just want to talk, no deflections." That surprised me. I let her in. She sat at my kitchen table like when I was a kid, same nervous hands, same strained smile. But this time, no excuses. "I owe you an apology," she said. I crossed my arms. "Just one?" Her face tightened, but she nodded. "Fair, probably more." She took a breath. I didn't see it, not because it wasn't there, but because I didn't want to. Liam's always been loud, larger than life. And you? You never asked for anything. You just handled things, showed up. We started treating you like a crutch. Something we assumed would always hold. "That's the thing about crutches," I said. "People only notice them when they're falling." Her lip quivered. She looked at her hands. "Your dad and I were wrong. We let Liam get away with too much. We let him treat you like you didn't matter." I stayed silent. "I know a pan of ziti and a sorry won't fix years of this, but I see it now, and I'm sorry." I watched her. For the first time, she wasn't dodging or defending Liam. She was just there, owning it. "Thank you," I said quietly. We didn't talk much longer. She left the ziti. I walked her out. She didn't ask me to forgive Liam or call him. Just said, "Take care of yourself," and left. Things didn't magically heal after that, but they didn't worsen either. My parents started texting me individually, short, respectful messages. Mom invited me to Christmas dinner. "Only if you're ready," she said. "I haven't decided if I'll go. Liam's back to a dead-end job at some startup, living with our parents, probably dodging his reflection. He hasn't reached out again. I'm fine with that. As for me, I started filling my time. I took that delayed trip to Italy. Bought myself a new pair of wireless earbuds. Read books on setting boundaries, family patterns, quiet resilience. I even started therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I learned healing doesn't come from waiting for someone else's apology. It comes when you look in the mirror and say, "You deserved better, and you gave it to yourself." So no, I didn't pay that bill, but I settled years of unspoken debt. And for the first time, I'm not sitting by the trash. I'm at my own table. And that's enough.